Good morning, everybody, and welcome. We are glad to be here in beautiful Hermanus. As you can see in the background, we all love Hermanus, but we also love the fact that we're being joined this morning by Dr. Valerie Shrimplin on Zoom from St. Albans in the UK. Valerie began giving us lectures during COVID times, and we are so delighted that she has continued to be prepared to do so since the end of the COVID pandemic. Valerie is a senior research associate at Gresham College in London, that wonderful institution from where you can also access excellent lectures via the internet, and we can give you that information if you are interested. Valerie is also an accredited UK Art Society lecturer. And those of you who may in South Africa have belonged to the organization DARTS will know just how special it is when somebody is such an accredited Art Society lecturer. But for me, the best is that I count Valerie as a friend since she lived in South Africa and our children were at primary school together, and we have remained friends all these years, which has enabled me to access the possibilities that she offers us, including this very special one on the day before Valentine's Day about the symbolism of the heart. Valerie, thank you so much. We are, as U3A members, also delighted that in your retirement, after an illustrious academic career, you are prepared to do so much volunteer work. And that is what many of us are also engaged in. And it's a blessing for us that your volunteer work includes being prepared to share with us via Zoom. Welcome and thank you very much.
Thank you, Caroline. And I'm very pleased to be here again. And as Caroline says, this is particularly relevant because it's Valentine's time of year. And in my preliminary slide here, I've got a picture of what really interests me. We've got a picture of the heart symbol that we all know, well, everybody knows worldwide. The red heart symbol is very popular, very well known all over the world. But here also I've got a heart-shaped brooch. This dates from about 1464 from a hoard that was hidden during the Wars of the Roses. So I'm going to say more about that later on, but just as by way of introduction, these are a couple of symbol and a Renaissance brooch. So what I wanted to do was to look at the difference. You can see on the left here a diagram of a heart with all the sort of bits labeled. And what really puzzled me was how you've got this rather sort of a blob with lots of tubes coming in and out of it, which is actually a pump, and how it happened to go from the image you can see on the left to the image, which is not only Valentine's, it's all the time, the image of the heart on the right. And it struck me in particular when my son was young, when I was living in South Africa in New Caroline, so that was a long, long time ago. And my son was looking at his school biology book, and there were these pictures of the heart, as you can see on the left, and it happened to be Valentine's Day. This was when I was now back in England in the 1990s. But I had a copy of the newspaper for Valentine's Day that had all these symbols and messages and everything. And I thought, you've got this curious, oddly shaped, asymmetric, bloody heart that comes transformed into the symbol that's so familiar today. And I thought, well, how did that happen? But I had to be careful not to call it ugly, because I spoke to a heart surgeon about this, and he says it's not ugly. The image, the anatomical one, is just as beautiful as the symbol. But before I go into that, I just want you to think for a little while. I'm not sure if you can see all the words on my screen, so I'll just go through them. But first, just think about what a symbol is for the moment, and what a symbol means. And the definition of that really is that this is an image, like the heart symbol, an object, a character, or a shape that represents a concept. And it signifies ideas and qualities and emotions, like the heart can signify love or courage or devotion. And it has a meaning that's different from the literal sense, from the literal heart. But it must be recognizable. You can't, a symbol doesn't work if you have to explain it. But the heart is really special and has been for a very, very long time, even before the modern heart symbol, as the soul and emotion and courage and love and strength, as well as its actual construction and function of making our bodies work. Now, the next slide was lent to me by this heart surgeon, and it's not for the squeamish. So you can see here heart symbolism. And as well as a symbol, we've got the heart symbol as actually as a verb, not just a noun as the heart, but I heart art symbol, I heart art history. It's become a verb as well, or I heart anatomy, where we've got an actual heart here. And we can see that it comes from the ancient Judeo-Christian tradition is mentioned, medieval chivalry, the Renaissance and Victorian sentimentality, right up to modern and commercial times today. And so I'm going to do a quick survey of these and try to explain how the one changed into the other. And the heart, of course, is not normally visible. It would have been familiar to people from animals, from butchering, and you know, anyone who's prepared a chicken or something, you would know what a heart might look like, but it's not normally visible, of course, whereas skulls and skeletons and of animals and humans were perhaps more familiar. So anatomically speaking, just to get the anatomy out of the way, we've got the tissue actually starts working within about 5 or 6 weeks of conception of the embryo. And it works ceaselessly all our lives, beating about 100,000 times a day, 40 million times a year, or 3 billion times in an average lifespan. And it's supplying blood to a distribution or network. All your veins in your body add up to about 60,000 miles or 97,000 kilometers. So how did this change? So into the symbols. So coming away now from the anatomy, we can find one of the earliest examples of a heart symbol is this pre-Columbrian sacrificial icon from Mexico. And this is from the Olmec civilization. And this is about 1500 BC. And you can see here that he's holding his heart. It seems to be the most important part of his body. And it is more anatomically correct. You can see the tubes coming out of the top. Now, this also happened in ancient Egypt, where the heart was really important. Because on death, your heart was weighed from the Book of the Dead from 1300 BC. And you can see in the image here, I'll just go into a close-up. You can see the heart there on the scales, and the heart is actually weighed against a feather to see whether you deserve to, whether you have a good heart, whether you deserve to go into the afterlife and so on. And it's weighed, it's like the scales of justice, which is another symbol that's familiar today. And here's another example where we've got the heart on the left. You can see the little left-hand part on the scales here, or the Book of the Dead on the other side. And the heart was very important in Egyptian society because of this. But it also played a role in the Egyptian creation myth, because Ptah, the god Ptah, conceived the world by the thought of his heart, and he gives life to the world through his heart. So the heart was recognized as being really, really important. Now, moving on to early Greek descriptions of the heart, describe it as pine cone shaped. And you can see here, most of the hearts I'm using are pig's hearts. They're not human. The image here is not a human heart. It's a pig's heart. So, but we've got here, it's a sort of a pine cone shape. So it's not the heart shape that we know, not the symbol that we know, but the Greeks thought of it as a pine cone shape. And of course, they were good at medicine and anatomy in the ancient times, which fell out of favor during the Middle Ages. Anatomical dissection for artistic or medical purposes was pretty much banned until the 15th century in Italy. But in ancient times, Galen was interested in anatomy, and he settled in Rome, and he was the most famous medical researcher of classical antiquity. And then two Renaissance examples are Andreas Vesalius in Italy, or William Harvey in England in the later 16th, early 17th century, who worked out the circulation of the blood, of course. But getting back to the symbolism, if we look in the Bible, we can look in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I'm sure you know many more examples, that there are lots of examples of the heart being used as a symbol in the Bible, a symbol of spirituality. It can also be a sign of evil. It's the origin of thoughts and deeds, but they might be wicked thoughts. So in Samuel, for example, it says, don't look on his countenance, look on, the Lord looks on your heart to see what you're like. Or in the Psalms, there are over 100 references to things like the person who has a pure heart, or in Proverbs, keep thy heart with all diligence, because everything of to do with life comes out of it, metaphorically and literally. Or from Matthew, the familiar reference to blessed are the pure in heart. But as I mentioned, it can also be the seat of evil in Ecclesiastes, the place of origin of having an evil heart, a bad heart. Now, looking at the classical world in Greece in Rome, in Greece, there's quite a difference between Aphrodite and Eros, the two different aspects of love, spiritual love, or human erotic love, romantic love, desire, which can also be physical, and agape, which is more devotional or spiritual. And the similar idea comes over in Rome, where we've got Venus and Cupid. And here we've got an example. This I thought was interesting, the 11th century Byzantine item, because you can see the little heart symbols on the books, but I think this is coincidental. I don't think this is a shape. Although this is one of the earliest forms of that particular shape, I don't think we can say that that is actually a heart symbol on the book there. We'll probably never know. It could just be a pattern. And there it is highlighted. You can see the heart shapes, but I don't think this is really a symbol quite yet, okay? But where it really comes in is when we're looking at the frescoes by Giotto in the Church of San Francesco at Assisi. And you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, there is Cupid. We've got here a combination in a religious story, where we've got Giotto including references to classical myths. So as you can see from the detail on the top right-hand corner, Cupid has a row of hearts slung around his chest on a string. There's sort of a famous art historian said he thought it was rather looked like, scalps or something threaded onto this is his sort of symbol of his victory. But you can see here, looking at the details, that it's beginning to take on this sort of heart shape that we know. And this really is the first instance, I think, of where we've got this modern heart symbol coming. You can have a look and see the details where there is a little cleft in the top of the heart that brings it more like the modern symbol. And there are other copies about this time. We've got the contrast between love and caritas. Caritas. On the left, we have a sculpture from the Florence Baptistry by Pisano. And on the right, another image by Giotto, this time at the Arena Chapel, Padua. And you can see in both of these that the on the left, holding a heart shape, it's upside down. The point of it is at the top. And again, on Giotto's example on the right, Caritas and charity, love, hope, and charity, Caritas, again, is offering the heart to God. There's an exchange there. So it does seem to be very much influenced by the Bible and coming through in these early Renaissance examples. And again here, we've got the religious idea of later 15th century examples, where we've got St. Catherine of Siena, who it's legendary that she exchanged her heart with Christ. So she's holding a bleeding heart. And the idea of a bleeding heart also related to the idea of Christ's wounds or the stigmata. This is late 15th century, and we can see here that it's definitely the heart shape now. Giotto sort of starts it, but by the late 15th century, it's caught on and it's everywhere. And that's to do with different things, that it becomes firmly established. And a lot of that is to do with chivalry and romantic courtly love. And I've got some examples of that here. This is called the Roman de la Proie, which is the story of the pair. And this is all about chivalry and courtly love. And this is the first example of a heart symbolizing romantic love. And here is where the damsel is being presented with a heart by the gentleman on the left, who's offering his heart to her. And the chivalry connection continues, especially during the Crusades, surprisingly. You've probably all heard of Richard the Lionheart, who was known for his brave heart. The heart is a symbol of bravery, perhaps, rather than love. But it's interesting to know that his heart was buried at a different place from his body. His heart was taken back to the abbey in Anjou. His body was buried in Anjou, but his heart was taken back to Rouen. And there are quite a few examples of this. And there's one in England, in Kent, for example. Sir Roger de Leybourne, he was killed in the Crusades in the 13th century. But his heart was brought back to England, and it's in a little casket in this very small church in Kent. So it's linked with the idea of chivalry and the Crusades and love, but also so important as the most important thing of the body that it had to be buried it separately, perhaps in a special place. And then again, we've got these romance of the heart, and it comes up in these manuscripts. For example, this romance of Alexander here in the 14th century, where the lady is offering her heart to the gentleman, or perhaps he's just given it to her, but definitely it's that heart shape now with a sort of indentation in the top. And we also find examples in castles, in the idea that love can save you. We've got pendants. On the top right-hand corner, it's actually made out of bone. It's a bone-shaped pendant for good luck, for a love token. That's in the Norwich Castle Museum. And we also get other carvings in a heart shape in museums at this time. And there was some in the Tower of London. And the idea that romantic love can save you. And that's really, really very true here, where we've got a Crusader breastplate. I saw this years ago when I was at a conference in Malta. And we can see the breastplate of the knight in armor with a heart over where the heart should be. And you can see the indentations by the bullets. So it seems that the idea here of having a token signifying Christ and Christianity over the heart actually did save the guy who was wearing this breastplate. Now, coming back to England, we mustn't forget Chaucer. Now, Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales, he wrote about the different pilgrims going to Canterbury, as I'm sure you're all aware. And he wrote quite a lot about the prioress, who had she was a bit rather worldly, and she had coral decorations and some beads. And she had a brooch of gold, and there was a crowned A, and then it said Amor vincit omnia, love conquers all. So she had this heart symbol, because of course the heart is a bit like an inverted A for amour. So it was very, very sort of very much linked with this idea. And of course, Chaucer is credited with this emphasis nowadays on St. Valentine's Day and modern love themes. In his book, The Parliament of Fowls, he emphasized St. Valentine's Day as a day when all the birds would find their love matches in the spring, which is pretty much what happens. But although he emphasized Valentine's, I don't think we can really hold Chaucer responsible for all the boxes of chocolates and red roses and cards that are being sold at this time of year. Another example here is a knight offering his little heart to his lady, surrounded by animals in a very lovely rural setting. This would have been a tapestry from the 15th century, a French one, because of course the French were very into chivalry and these romantic tapestries. And then to have a closer look at the brooch I showed you at the beginning from the Fishpool hoard. This is in the British Museum. You can see front and back. It's very beautiful. Actually, they sell replica of brooches in the British Museum shop. So next time you're in London, which I hope you will be, and you can buy your very own version. And this was part of the largest hauls of coins that was ever found in England in 1966. So that's 500 years after it was buried, probably during the Wars of the Roses. The hoard was buried hidden for safety. And on the back it says, Je suis votre sans partier, meaning I'm yours, not just a part, I'm yours wholly. So it's definitely got this love connection. It's not just a shape. It probably had other things dangling from below with the little hooks at the bottom of the V that you can see. And again, we've got lots more examples. Another French example here, dropping the heart into the open flower, which might have erotic connotations. Or another French tapestry here. You can see the heart. I'll just go on the next slide. The heart at the top. Again, so by now it is really, really established and linked and very popular in the 16th century. But of course, to go back to recall the medical aspects we spoke about, we have to remember that it's in the 16th century that anatomy becomes more sophisticated. Here we've got some earlier manuscripts showing the heart and the liver. But even in the medical manuscript on the right, the doctor is pointing to what is very definitely a modern heart shape. In the Renaissance itself, we've got Donatello here, and this is his sculptured bronze plaque about searching for the miser's heart. The miser didn't have a heart, but the heart is actually found. If you look on the left, they're opening, it's an anatomy lesson, and they're opening the body up, but they can't find the heart in the center. But on the left, we've got a heart that's found in his money chest, complete with its all the tubes and aorta, showing that the anatomy was really borne in mind as well at this stage. And then, of course, we've got Leonardo da Vinci, and it's an issue of whether this is art or science. Is this a scientific drawing or an artwork? Probably both. So Leonardo studied anatomy and drew a lot of hearts, and you can see here he really studied all the different functions of the heart and the various tubes and aorta and the arteries and so on. And I particularly like this example because this is an example from Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. There are about 11 letters from Henry to Anne that survive. We don't have her replies back to Henry. And they were taken off. They were probably appropriated by a Catholic, and they were taken off to Rome, and they're actually in the Vatican Museum. But Henry VIII mentions Anne Boleyn a lot, and it shows his real love for her. So he goes, I wish you were in mine arms. It's a long time since I kissed you. My heart will be devoted to you only. But at the bottom, if we look at the bottom here, where his signature is at the very bottom, you can see this shape, and I'll just show you in a detail. You can see this shape of the heart. The inscription actually reads Henry the King. And then in the heart in the middle, can you see it's got the little initials AB, Anne Boleyn? He's almost like a lovesick schoolboy. He's drawn a heart and put his loved one's initials in the heart, which is the sort of thing that school kids might do today. But it's definitely a heart symbol, and that is a heart symbol by Henry VIII. So again, in the 16th century, we've got emblems, the increase in symbolism. So on the left, we've got the symbol, a classical story of the falcon eating the heart of Prometheus, and the heart is clearly shown there. And another example on the right, where the shield is rather heart-shaped. But there were actually books of emblems and symbols produced. But even at that time, the symbols, here's one's dating from the late 15th century, it was not all good. It was not all, chivalry and love and happiness and everything's wonderful and courage and so on. Because we can see from this example, and this is Northern Europe, which perhaps isn't as jolly as some other places, the artist, Meister Caspar, shows the power of Venus, to trample on and destroy hearts, and how you can have your heart broken, and you can see all these hearts being pierced by arrows or squashed and broken into or bursting into flames and sawn in half. It's quite gory because it's showing how broken hearts, it's showing the unhappy side perhaps of love, of unrequited love, as well as all the happier times that some of the other images have illustrated. The religious aspect continues, and it's very much in the late 15th and 16th century, as we have the Catholic Church is emphasizing the heart, and this comes through in the Jesuits as well, where we've got the heart being associated with Christ in the Codex on the left from 1486. We can see the heart is being, it's the sort of the home of Christ as the Christ child, while the cross is shown above to show what will happen to him. And again, here on the right, we've got a combination of the heart and the cross again, used as a religious symbol and being crucified on the Sacred Heart. And it was also used by the Protestants. So the heart was taken as an emblem of Martin Luther. And you can see here in the church, in the symbol of the rose in the middle, but with a heart in the center. And on the right, we've got a portrait of a young man who's holding a little manuscript with writing on it, but it's actually in a heart-shaped book, which sort of symbolizes the idea that your heart is an open book, and you can't always hide your feelings, and your heart will become known, what you're thinking will become known to others. Another example here is of the links with Cupid, where we've got the Christian ideas being combined with classical ideas, whether these are from Greece or more probably in Italy taken directly from Rome. So we have here Cupid riding a horse, and you can see on the detail on the left that the horse is wearing a sort of a garland of hearts round its neck. And we've got Cupid standing up high with all his arrows, where he's going to strike the hearts of the others. And it also came through in literature. We haven't got time to go into literature as well, but some of you might remember that even in Hamlet, Shakespeare mentions hearts and St. Valentine's Day. Ophelia, when Hamlet rejects her, sadly mentions tomorrow is St. Valentine's. So it's becoming really, really entrenched. A slightly later one, as we progress this sort of survey, looking at different hearts over the centuries, this Baroque example from the 17th century, St. Teresa of Avila, it's sort of linked with her religious ecstasy that Christ appeared to her with an angel and thrust it into her heart. So she was really passionate about Christ. The metal is actually, the arrow is actually metal, it's not rigid. So the angle can vary, but the script says that the arrow was thrust into her heart, the most important part, symbolizing love and devotion. Or later in the 17th century, we've got 3 examples here by different artists, de Champagne, Vouet, and Gain, showing the hearts. And the heart was very much a symbol here of the Jesuits and the flaming hearts used to convert people to their form of Catholicism. But let's draw away from Europe for a moment and look at some other examples, because as I've said, this is a worldwide phenomenon. And we haven't got time to cover things, but just a few examples here from other parts of the world. We've got the Aztec heart, and the Aztec was used in sacrifice. And of course, with human sacrifice, that is when people would have known exactly what a human heart looked like, rather gruesomely. And so we do have images of hearts in Aztec artworks. And so on the left, showing the familiarity with the heart as they took the heart out of the body of the sacrifice. But it also crops up in India, and the example on the right, it's partly anatomical, but also showing the heart and showing it in that particular shape. So for a quick look at other cultures, don't forget other parts of the world. But the Jesuits and the Sacred Hearts were, as I say, something that was very important. Here we've got on the left a heart surrounded by the sort of embraced by the crown of thorns, so very much symbolizing Christ. Whereas on the right-hand side example, it's interesting because you can see the anatomical bit coming through, where we've got all these veins and things picked out on this heart symbol, but it's showing the veins. And those, again, we can see in this late 18th century version that we've got the hearts and all the veins and tubes being shown as it is combined with a symbol of Christ with the crown of thorns. Now, some other examples came across recently were from the Foundling Hospital in London. This was founded by Coram, and it was where people would leave babies that they couldn't look after. And of course, often these were illegitimate and the result of unpleasant relationships or pleasant relationships, but without being able to keep the baby. And quite often, if a mother, because it usually came down to the mother, if a mother left a baby at the Foundling Hospital for foundling babies, she would leave a token with the baby so that might be identified in later life. So if you look at the token on the left, was left at the Foundling Hospital. a little heart shape to be pinned onto the babies. You can see the pin at the top. That wouldn't be the original pin, but it will be left with the baby so that if times change, the mother might be able to come back and reclaim her baby. And a heart shape was very common for these because the mother left her heart, her love with her baby, that she had to abandon. But the example on the right, dated 1759, you can see this is silver, and it's engraved. Again, it was left with a baby to reunite with a baby that was left or abandoned. And the inscription reads, "You have my heart, though we must part." And this is really tragic because you can see that even a rich woman, even the mother of a child who was well off enough to have a metal inscribed token for her baby, you think this might have been the illegitimate child of an aristocratic family or something. So it was sort of rich and poor alike would be interested in knowing about the heart symbol. Though you have my heart, we must part. She had to abandon her baby. They're quite sad, really. They're in a museum in London. The Sacré-Cœur, the Sacred Heart in Montmartre in Paris is late 19th century. But this is where we really draw away from this intense religious symbolism to get a more everyday symbolism. If we look at the works by the Pre-Raphaelites, where we've got Dante Gabriel Rossetti on the left, the Joli Cœur, the Jolly Heart, the Pretty Heart of 1867, where the model is showing off this lovely heart pendant that she's got, or another heart pendant on the right, again affixed to a necklace that is also coloured red, from the 1860s. And then, of course, it's about this time that we get the Valentine's cards coming in. These are the example of Victorian Valentine's cards. And you can see we've got the Cupid, we've got the love, but we've definitely got the heart symbol. It's love and Cupid on the left, and it's devotion and sentimentality on the right, and just a rather jolly Valentine's card in the middle there. And again, looking at other cultures, we've got a Chinese heart symbolism here, where the word for the heart, the Chinese word on the left or the right, you can see is related. I won't attempt to pronounce the Chinese, but you can see that the symbol in Chinese script for the heart is very similar to it's sort of derived from the shape of the anatomical shape of the heart. It bears more resemblance to the object. And then moving on to the modern times, Edvard Munch, we've got modern artists using it without the religious connotation, but it's more of a love connotation now. We've got the Maiden and the Heart, or his other work of both of them, Maidens with Hearts, from the 1890s. And Braque, the Cubist paintings would include all sorts of things if you look for them in a still life. And we've got Braque, and Cézanne also did, to a certain extent, include heart symbolism in their work. Or if we look in more modern examples, we've got Joan Miró, the dancers. So with the dancer here, the heart, the joyousness of the heart comes through. So we can see that it can symbolize lots of different things. But I think by the time of the modern age, it's love and happiness, really. And Matisse here, we have examples. The Enamored Heart on the left by Matisse, or Icarus. And it's interesting here that he just in the 1940s, just after the World War, that he's just put the heart as a blob. It's not trying to be anatomical, but he's drawing away from this heart symbol, which has now become rather cliched, actually. So looking through these modern examples, we mustn't forget Frida Kahlo and her famous painting of the two Fridas of 1939. And here it's anatomically much more correct. And this was painted after her divorce, where she felt that it was her heart had been cut and torn open. You can see the scissors and the tearing open of her body on the left, but her stronger persona on the right is sort of giving a transfusion to help her recover. It's not always traditional, because in David Hockney's works here, we've got two boys. We've got same-sex relationships with two boys clinging together, and lots of hearts, or a beautiful boy on the right, but still the heart symbol figures quite a lot. And then, of course, it comes through into cartoons with Roy Lichtenstein, and here where the heroine is crying behind her heart-shaped glasses, saying that romance has gone, because what was once reflected in her glasses is no longer reflected. And then just coming along, we've got more abstract designs by artists like Peter Blake in the 1980s. This is 1980s. Now, I don't know if this was featured in South Africa at all, the Benetton advert, but this was featured in places in England in the late 1990s. And I took a photograph of this. It was an advertisement for Benetton. And what they were trying to do was to say that white, black, and yellow, everyone is the same underneath. They're actually pigs' hearts, they're not human hearts. But it was banned, which I found was strange, because it was trying to say that we're all the same inside. But it was regarded as too outrageous, and it was at a huge scale. You can see by the image on the left next to a car. This was on a hoarding quite near where I live now, and they were all taken down because it was regarded as very outrageous and shocking. Banksy, the modern artist, his famous Girl with a Balloon, he did a whole series of these, and the heart-shaped balloon became one of his kind of trademarks. And it was actually a Banksy image with a framed copy that shredded itself when it was auctioned. I don't know if you remember that. And then Damien Hirst, who became well known for sort of pickled cows and things in his artworks. I noticed, you can say I've been collecting these for a long time, because this newspaper cutting is dated 2008. You know, the years slip by quite quickly, but the image on the left, which is the Damien Hirst artwork, which sold for £250,000, with a knife and a heart and barbed wire. But in the newspaper, someone pointed out that you could make your own for about £17. But you know, it's clever, but is it art? Again, it's the sort of the pierced heart, the broken heart. But the barbed wire almost looks like the crown of thorns from those earlier Jesuit examples we saw. And then modern hearts. We've got a public statue in San Francisco. And then, of course, those of you who use your smartphones to communicate, it's almost a new vocabulary: the broken heart, sparkling heart, purple hearts, ribbons. There's a whole language connected with it. And we can see that particularly at this time of year, which is why I thought this would be a good time to have a talk at this time of year. And you can see the sort of things that are celebrated. So we've got shops now. I've collected these from different years. We can see in the bottom left-hand corner, 2017, a Valentine's city break to New York. You don't just buy a box of chocolates or a red rose. You've got to take your loved one for a weekend to New York nowadays, apparently. Or you can come up on the top left with a heart-shaped pizza or a nice box of chocolates or some red roses. But again, you know, the mugs and the souvenirs. But again, we still got hearts, broken hearts, because of course Valentine's cards are quite often traditionally sent anonymously. And so this is looking at how it has become this heart symbol, having seen how it's evolved from the ancient Egyptians, flourishing in the Renaissance, developed after that as a religious symbol and so on. But now it's become the commercial side of things. And this photograph I took a few years ago, and I took it on the 3rd of January, where this was at a shopping centre in London, where the minute that Christmas is over and they clear away the Christmas cards, then out come the Valentine's cards with all the heart symbolism and the associated heart-shaped box of chocolates on the left. So that, you know, and cracking jokes, as well as just a sort of you can still find ones like the Victorian sentimental idea, but nowadays it's sort of more of a fun thing some of the time, unless of course you're the one who's pining and wishing that this person you're writing to anonymously could be yours. And of course we've got all the teddy bears and balloons and everything else, but it's the same old heart symbol. We can see at the bottom the more traditional type, but on the bottom row of the image on the left, we've got really nice, more traditional heart symbols. But of course, a lot of them are jokey. I don't know if it's such a big thing in South Africa or in Hermanus as it is in London, but I was in London yesterday. I mean, it is just everywhere. And so looking at how much I went into some statistical sites and found some facts and figures about modern commercialization and retail spending on Valentine's Day in the UK. These are in millions of pounds. So it's almost 1,000 million pounds, they reckon, was spent during this time. The last one was 2022. I think there was a drop. You can see there was a drop during the COVID times. It leveled off. People weren't getting out so much, especially when COVID hit in February 2020. But a huge amount is spent. And in America, these are actually, the total spend here is in billions. And again, we've got a drop during COVID, but we've got 25 billion pounds spent in the USA. And then just sort of to finish off with, we'll go back to the medical aspects, because I don't know if the British Heart Foundation, if there's an equivalent in South Africa, but they use this heart as their symbol, and it's appropriate and it's recognised. And again, this system, I took this photograph when I was doing defibrillator training. I worked in a college, we all had to do the training. But you can see from the dummy where you practice CPR on the front that this is a medical training course, and yet the heart is the little red heart symbolism, because they know that everybody is going to recognise it. And then I thought this was quite amusing, one that I collected, was from Damien Hirst, as if Damien Hirst would send an actual dissected heart for his Valentine. So I think we're doing all right for time, and I'm just coming back for the hour. My next slide, I've got a short video to show you, which will last about a minute. There is sound on it. The sound might go. We had some problems with sound when we did the practice, but I'll see if it works and hope it works all right. Now, this is an image of an air display that I took at Cows Week a few years ago. And it's the Red Arrows. This is a display team, and they have trails, and they do things a lot at, in coronations and things like that. But this one I thought was amazing, because there were a lot of people at Cows on the Isle of Wight in the south of England. And over the beach, the Red Arrows came in. And as you can see, they were swooping and diving. And then suddenly on the right, I was filming this on my camera, and I moved to the right because I saw the most amazing image coming up in the sky, which I'll show you now, and I hope it works. So on the right, I suddenly saw that there were two red arrow jets moving at goodness knows how many miles an hour, make this amazing heart symbol in the sky. And then another jet comes in from the right to make the arrow. And you can see it coming through and out the other side, the trail of the arrow of the heart. And I just thought that was totally amazing because you can see the timing to get the first two to do it as a symmetrical symbol of the heart. And then how the guy piloting the jet that comes in from the right to get it at exactly the correct moment to provide the arrow of the heart. I just thought that was absolutely incredible and wanted to show it to you. Oh, I'm trying to, oh, it's come up again. Well, I'll show it again. So there's the heart symbol made by two fighter jets, and then the other fighter jet coming through from the right. And I'll try and move in from the, I'll try and move on now. And so thank you that. And I think we'll end up using the heart as a verb. I heart U3A. I like U3A and I'd love to talk to you. So thank you very much. We've got summing up here, you know, we've got this, we've looked at the symbol, we've looked at the organ, we've done a historical survey to show you how it evolved and symbolism in general we've thought about, and how it links with the study of anatomy and how it's now more depicted in modern art as well, although it's not normally visible, and how it's become commercialized. And here's my last slide. I took this in London yesterday, so it's not finishing off at all by any means. So I hope that's been of interest, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.